Welcome back to the Paige Kornblue Show. This episode is brought to you by SoCo Social, the go-to social media agency for fashion, beauty, lifestyle, and wellness brands. We are going to get 1% better today, at least. And this is thanks to Marc Nudelberg. He is a TEDx speaker, author, coach, and entrepreneur. He leverages his experiences as a Division I football coach and president of On the Ball Consulting to help individuals and their teams adopt the 1% better mindset. Marc's teachings are focused on the two biggest factors to success: what you think and what you do. He delivers energy, passion, and competitive drive while helping people focus on the details and develop repeatable processes that produce results. Yes, sir. Let's go. Welcome, Marc.
Those are all my favorite words, like wrapped into one paragraph.
I know. Great job on the bio.
Thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be a guest, and nice to make the full family connection now.
Yeah. So this is a wild story, how we connected. I went randomly. I had seen some promos for the TEDx Boca Raton, and I went, and I'm always taking notes no matter where I am. And I'm taking notes, and yours of all the speakers were my longest notes. Loved it. And we'll get into some of the things you shared in a few minutes. But I posted about it. I wrote in Boca Magazine about it. And my brother texts me, and he goes, "That's my buddy. That's Noodle, Coach Noodle." And I said, "Tell me, who, what?" Yeah. So how neat. You and Brandon go way back.
Go way back. We have some unbelievable successful stories of ourselves of getting kids to certain schools and making things happen. But Brandon was instrumental in my early college football career because for those people who don't understand the game of football or whatever, there is something called a special teams coordinator. And the special teams coordinator is responsible for a third of the game that most people look at as like a fifth of the game. Yet it's still just as equal, maybe more important than those other 2/3. And when I was coming up as a young coach, I realized that a lot of other special teams coordinators didn't actually know a whole lot about the specialist part of the game, the kicking, the punting, and the snapping, which were at the core of what you were responsible for. And so even though they were good football coaches, they didn't know a lot about playing those positions or coaching those positions. And when I met Brandon, we connected personally, but then I used him as my tutor a little bit and being like, look, I'm not interested in just coaching schematics of special teams. Like, I want to be able to coach the details with the actual specialists. I want to be able to look at what they're doing, know what they're doing, and be able to coach and guide them. And he became my tutor, and he became my sounding board for ideas that I had, things that I was looking at, and the way I was evaluating and thinking about specialists. And we developed a very good friendship and went on to recruit some great kids and do some good stuff together.
Oh, well, yeah, Kornblue kicking. Right?
There you go.
We love it, Kornblue kicking. But, you mentioned coaching, you mentioned mentoring, and that's so much of what you did, what you do. When we connected last week, you said, we said our typical hellos, hello, how are you? And you said, live in the dream, and you meant it. You meant it. And that's, I loved that because I have some girlfriends, moms, who are working hard, and one joked also last week. She says, when people ask me, how are you doing? And I'm in front of my kids, I say, live in the dream, and sarcastic. Right? Because it's hard. Everything's so hard.
Of course.
And when you coach and what you're doing now, you are helping people kind of get through.
Well, I think the perspective shift has to be that if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be worth doing. So you wouldn't be happy if it was easy. But then when it's hard, you're like, oh, it's hard. But like, this is what you want. Like, look around. And if you're doing hard things that don't make you happy in the long run, then you're not thinking and working towards the things that you should be. You're not clear on your priorities. You don't really understand what makes you tick. And that's what most people do. Most people just go through. Most people are just doing and taking the next job and taking the next promotion and getting married and having the kids. And they're just doing it because it's what we've been conditioned to understand is what we're supposed to do. And if you take a minute to really just reflect on what do you really want, what are the things that really make you happy, and then be willing to say, all right, I know part of it's going to be hard. There's hard in everything, but at least I get to do what I want to do. And that's really where I'm at now. When I think about family, when I think about business, when I think about my personal time, like yesterday I got to spend 5 hours on the golf course with some buddies of mine. And it doesn't really matter what I'm choosing to do. Even if there's hard involved, I love what I do.
And we're going to get into some of that. Let's go back real quick to a little of your background. You spent, 14 plus years as a football coach.
Yep.
Division I, quite a career. What were some of the teams you worked with?
Yeah, so I was fortunate to start my career at Florida State with Coach Bowden and the old staff, the original staff that was there. And then I was a part of Jimbo Fisher and his new staff. And he was actually the guy who hired me full time once I graduated from Florida State. But so I started at Florida State and had great success there. Had the opportunity to go from there to the University of Cincinnati with Tommy Tuberville. From there back to the University of Florida, back to the state of Florida, and got to be a Gator on the other side of the rivalry with Jim McElwain. Then across the country to the University of Nevada, which is in Reno with Brian Polian. And then back across the country to Lafayette College, which is in Pennsylvania and a high academic institution. And 5 schools and 10 years of postgraduate coaching was enough. And that was the time that I transitioned out of the athletic career and into the business career.
You called a reverse.
I did. Called a major audible. Major audible.
Why?
It wasn't what I wanted anymore. For me, I was fortunate that I worked with a lot of unbelievable coaches, a lot of terrible coaches. I saw the highs and lows of the profession in a very short amount of time. I mean, 10 years is not a short amount of time. But there are some guys who take 30, 40 years to see all of the things that I saw in my 10-year career. And for me, I knew what continuing my career and continuing to chase the goal of being a head coach would take. I know what the sacrifice would look like. I knew exactly what the road was going to be for the next 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 years. And as I looked at that sacrifice, I questioned whether or not it was really what I wanted. And for me, understanding what high performance takes and understanding what, real success takes and the devotion to it, I knew if I was questioning it, then I didn't want it. And so it was a real moment of self-reflection and self-awareness to say, it's okay to change direction now. It's going to take a lot of courage. It's going to take a lot of, understanding for yourself. And it's going to take a lot of resilience and all of the different things that are going to happen in the next few months. But if you're unsure, that it's time to go. And that was it. And that was really it.
Some take a break from coaching and then miss it and go back. What was it that you loved about coaching that you're now kind of using in what you're teaching and guiding people?
So regardless of sports or business or your personal life or whatever it is, I've always loved the opportunity to not only motivate somebody, but actually help them develop the plan to go execute it and see them have success. That, to me, in coaching football was the greatest thing because I couldn't do it for them on Saturdays. So it was my job to see them, see the potential, develop a plan that I thought would fit them best and help them get there. And watch them execute it on Saturday. That's it. That was it. And so that concept still happens for me every day. Now it just comes in terms of either an individual or an organization as a whole, as we're looking at what are your goals, what are you trying to do, where do you want to go as an entire unit or just as an individual, and how do I help not only you feel motivated and capable of doing it, but how do I really help you put together a plan that puts you on track and focuses on the behaviors to get you there and then hold you accountable to it. And so it doesn't matter to me. I'm doing the exact same thing I was doing with 18 to 22-year-olds. Now I'm doing them with a much larger age group with a, non-descriptive industry. It doesn't really matter what industry it's in because it always comes back to what are we thinking and what are we doing? And if we can focus either the entire organization or some of our leaders or just one person on those things, you're guaranteed to find success.
So it's under the umbrella of On the Ball Consulting, and there's many different avenues to your company. It's a family-owned business. Tell us a little bit about the company, and then we'll kind of branch off into some of the things.
Yeah, I was fortunate to grow up with my dad down here in South Florida, who's a serial entrepreneur and just the networker of networkers. So he's one of the most well-known individuals down here. And watching him build businesses and watching his drive is what, implemented those things inside of me as a young person and helped me become successful at football. I've been fortunate now to partner with him in On the Ball, which On the Ball is a company that's over 25 years old and has changed face multiple times. Now we focus on training and development. And I know what that means through my football career. I know what that means to have consistently done it at a high level. And my dad's done it through all of the different organizations that he's built and grown over the years. So we've really partnered together to have not only the content, right, not only the delivery, but also all of the capabilities to help you create a well-rounded training and development for yourself as an individual or for an organization.
And I think that's key. So many of our, it's easy to sign and pull the trigger on strengthening and supporting when it's your company, right? Mm-hmm. The head guys and gals will pick, okay, this is great for my team. This is great for my restaurant. This is great for my business. But when it comes to ourselves, and I would compare it to therapy, right? A lot of times you're like, I spend the money on my gym membership. I spend the money on groceries every day. Mm-hmm. My kids need this activity and these shoes for school. And we always forget about ourselves. And I'm learning this myself as a single mom and really trying to so what do you say to those people who perhaps don't often take the moment to take the pause to better ourselves and strengthen where we're going?
If you're not investing in yourself, then it's impossible for you to be the best version of you for all the people around you. So you might be good enough, right? You might be good for everybody, and you're going to continue to give and give and give to everybody. But if you're not doing anything to help you grow and to refill your tank, you're eventually going to either plateau or you're eventually going to run out of gas. And so if you really love everybody and you really want to be the giver you want to be for everybody around you, which is who those people tend to be, then you have to make it a priority to fill your tank. And I mean, it's the old, the emergency air mask on the airplane, right? What do they tell you? They tell you to secure your mask before you do somebody else's. Why? Because if you're not getting oxygen, you can't help anybody else get oxygen. So what is your oxygen, right? And if you're not challenging yourself or you're not having somebody else challenge you consistently, then you're leaving potential out there. You're leaving a lot of capability out there for yourself, and there's nothing worse than wasted talent.
How do you guide those people? Take us through, I guess, a Cliff Note version of what it would look like if someone called you and said, hey, Marc, I'm in.
So it's pretty simple. I mean, depending on, the track that you take with us, there's an online learning community that we are a part of that everybody has access to all of the playbook information, if you will, right? The tactics, the philosophies, and you have the ability to learn that from us at your own pace through our LMS. Now, at the end of every month, we bring all of those people together to have what we call as accountability call, right? Just because you're watching, just because you're listening, just because you're learning doesn't mean you're actually doing. And if you're not doing, then you're not actually growing. So you could listen to all the information that you want. If you don't put it into practice, you're not helping yourself get better. So we have a monthly accountability call where we bring everybody in and we say, hey, now's your opportunity to, number one, talk about how the implementation is going of these things. And we can help you answer questions, real-time coach, do everything you need to continue to grow. But it's also a community of people that are doing it as well. So a lot of times the best part of those calls is I don't end up coaching somebody in the community ends up coaching somebody and giving some perspective and sharing. And so it's truly a group of people that are getting 1% better. But as you kind of go down the path of development, when we work with an organization and I work with somebody on an individual basis, I got to get to know you, right? Because and I just had Coach Levine on the podcast on our show this past Friday, and he said his favorite coaching quote was, "They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." And that is true whether you're dealing with 18-year-old kids that are in college or whether you're dealing with people that are 55 and at the, a breaking point in their career that they're figuring out what to do. It's all about relationship. And so for me at the very beginning, it's about building a relationship. It's about figuring out who you are, what makes you tick, how you got to where you got, and why you're trying to go in the direction you're trying to go. What are you trying to do? Why are you trying to do that? So that we can, first of all, see if there's any cracks in the foundation, right? Maybe there's some things right then and there that we can address that say, hey, like what you say you're trying to do doesn't really align with kind of who you say you are as a person and what you say you care about. So let's address some of these inconsistencies right now before we start heading down this road. And then as we start to set the right foundation and we start to really decide on, what people's priorities are, because that's always a big miss for people is like, I'm like, what's your priority? And like, oh, well, it's to do, $500,000 in revenue this year. I'm like, that's a goal, not a priority. So let's back that up a second. Like maybe work is your priority. Okay. Work is a priority. How many priorities do you have? How can we really ensure that we're defining what a priority is and picking the right priorities to then be able to set a goal, a quantifiable goal, and then be able to say, okay, how do we align our behavior with those goals and those priorities? Because now you've created real alignment in everything that you're doing. And that is just a simple philosophy that I took out of coaching football, right? We wanted to be the most disciplined, fast, hardworking team. Okay, that's our vision. Great, that's a priority. What are the goals associated with that? Winning a national championship, winning a conference championship. Okay, great, quantifiable goals. What do those behaviors look like on a daily basis? What do those behaviors look like in the weight room? What do those behaviors look like in the classroom? What do those behaviors look like on the practice field, in the meeting rooms? How can we define what that behavior looks like so that we can hold ourselves accountable to it?
Your posts, it's not just a picture, what you share with everybody. There's a message in each one. Awesome. By the way, thank you.
Thank
because
you.
It's just a little bit of what you're doing and you share it so well, no matter where, LinkedIn and all your platforms. What would your definition of success be?
Fulfilled. So it's not monetary. It's not a certain amount of kids in a family. It's not a very specific thing. It's a feeling. Success is a feeling, because I think when you align success with outcomes, you realize that they're not as full as you thought they were. I've won championships. I've won big games. I've been at the peak moments of what you think a sports career is about. And you get there and you realize that it's great. It feels good in that moment, but it's not what it's about. It was about the journey to get there, actually. The highest moments of a championship year are like week 7 when you're a little banged up. You're not so sure whether or not you're going to be able to pull this one out. This is a game people think you should win, and you don't play so well, and you come out and you get the win. That ends up being like the best moment of the year. Not the championship, not the bowl game, not the rings. It's that moment, because it was challenging and we came together and it was unique. And so I think if you can define success as feeling fulfilled, and what that really means is loving what you're doing and being passionate about what you're doing, doesn't mean it's all easy, doesn't mean that it all feels good all the time, but you're working in alignment with who you are and what you want to do. That to me is success, because you'll make money, you'll lose money. And you'll have a ton of clients and you have very few clients. You're going to win championships. You're going to have down years. You're going to win games. You're going to lose games. I don't care if you talk about it in a business sense or a sports sense. Those are all outcomes. And there's going to be millions of them, millions of outcomes. So if outcomes define success for you, then you are only going to feel success for a very short amount of time. But if you can define success as what you do and how you do it on a daily basis, you can be successful every single day.
You talked about, in your TEDx talk, you talked about success, fulfillment. You talked about courage and resilience and confidence. And you also talked about failure. So what do you say about failure. Share that with us.
I think there are far too many people that are afraid to say the word failure. And I think, I started that talk by saying, what if failure had no negative connotation to it, right? Like, how would your life be different? If you weren't afraid to fail at something, how many more things would you have tried? Or if you weren't afraid of what people thought about failure, how would you try harder? What would you do differently? What risk would you have taken? Because that's ultimately what shapes our lives, is the amount of risk and the amount of failure we're willing to tolerate. If you look at the most successful entrepreneurs, entertainers, athletes, doesn't matter, they all fail countless times and come back and come back and come back. And so you mentioned confidence, you mentioned courage, you mentioned resilience. The only way you get those three characteristics is through failure, is through trying, it not going the way you thought it was going to go, and then being willing to try again. And all of a sudden you realize, okay, I can do this again. I can try again. That's resilience, right? And courage comes from getting over that twinge of, ooh, this is scary, and I don't know if I actually want to do it. That's courage. That's the muscle that gets flexed when you feel that, and you go, no, I'm going to do it anyway, right? And the confidence comes from not relying on the result, right? Like Dion is a master at this, and I think people are watching him and they're caught up in him as a person and as a coach, and the hat and the glasses, and it's just this whole hype around him. But people don't realize that if they lose, he doesn't care. It's not about winning and losing for him. It's about how they go about doing everything. And he knows that if he is consistent and disciplined enough to doing what it takes to be successful, he's going to get there. So one loss or one failure or 1 year, it's not going to define him. And that's what confidence is not being defined by those individual moments, but knowing that what defines you is far bigger than that, far more than that, and nothing can take you away from that. That's confidence. And all of that is built through failure. And so I look back at my career, I'm so thankful that I failed so many times. Failed at winning games, failed at preparing the special teams the right way, got fired, considered a failure in my mind. And I'm not afraid to say, I failed a lot. But because I failed a lot, I continue to find more success. And if you let failure define you, or you let failure define a moment, it's impossible for you to find success again.
One of the lines that you said stuck with me, and you said, when failure happens, you have 24 hours to deal with that emotion, and then it's time to move on. We can't ignore the feelings, but we do have to move on. And I think that applies across the board, whether we're talking about athletics, academics, relationships, marriage, divorce, all those things. Being sad, when you lose somebody, and maybe 24 hours is, but the little things, 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
And the bigger things, it's also a pause in life, and it's okay to feel it and move on. And you're going to feel it continually, but talk about that.
And I tell people, you're risking severe damage, or you're risking something bigger if you just go, I'm just going to power through it. I'm just going to get through this. I'm not even going to think about it. It's no big deal. I'm going for it, And that's great. You're going to keep going, but that emotion was real. That failure was real. That circumstance was real. And if you don't really allow yourself to feel it and process it, you're either burying it, which is going to create a really bad habit for you, and then it's going to rear its head at some moment that you really don't want it to, or you're not actually taking the time to understand it and appreciate it, and you're missing a lesson in that somewhere. So I call it the 24-hour rule, and for me, I understood that if I tried to move on immediately, there was going to be emotion that affected my judgment on what we did next. And so I didn't just push through and say, I'm just going to do it, because then I made poor decisions on what the next steps were. But if I allowed myself to just feel it, right, good or bad, doesn't matter. Same thing with success. If you revel in the success for 3 weeks, you've crushed any opportunity of repeating that success. But especially failure, 24 hours. Allow yourself to feel it, and then, okay, Now it's time for me to move on. Now I felt it. Yep, it sucks. I'm human. We're all human.
You said
it's
own
okay.
Own it.
It's
Yep,
okay.
I got it.
And all right, so then now what am I gonna do, right? And that talk really talked about 4 simple steps. The first one being the 24-hour rule, and then you just said it, right? The next thing becomes own it, take responsibility for it. Because now if I can take responsibility for it, now nobody can define it for me. Nobody can make an excuse about it for me. I got a real opportunity to look at it, learn from it, and then do something about it.
How do you balance it all?
I think balance is bullshit.
Okay. All right. Well, there we go.
I would define balance as the skill set of being able to properly distribute your time and attention to where your priorities are weighted at the moment. So like to think that like I'm perfectly split between like 50-50 family and business is not reality, you know? And to me, I think the majority of my time gets spent on my family. And I'm okay with that because I did it the opposite way my entire football career. It was 90% football, 10% family. And that's not what really drives me. The thing that really drives me is my family, is being a dad, is being a husband, is being a brother, being a son, all of those things that make me who I am, an uncle or whatever. So if I say that that's my top priority, then my weight has to be distributed that way. So if I'm 60-40, right, work or family and work, that's a solid split for me. And I know I can be efficient enough and do all the work necessary to be successful in that 40% of my time. But maybe it's not. Maybe I need to be 50% family, 40%, you know, work, and 10% me, right? Maybe I need to find some time in there. So for me, it starts with understanding, being crystal clear on your priorities. What are your priorities? And are they broad enough to where you can really break out all of the goals that go inside of them in order to be able to distribute your time properly? But we live in seasons. Every day is not the same. Every month is not the same. We got to understand that based on the season we're in, our priorities are weighted differently. And if you're able to easily adapt and distribute your time based on where your priorities are weighted, you got a chance at balance. Because like, think about the true like scale, the balance scale, right? It doesn't always have equal parts to balance. Some things are heavier than others. You might have one heavy weight and then have thousands of pennies in order to balance. Life is similar, right? One major priority is super heavy. A lot of time goes over there for you, right? And all of these little pennies are the other things that you have to focus on. There's thousands of those, which, okay, 1 in 1,000. That doesn't feel like balance to everybody. But in terms of the weight of the priority and how important it is balance. So I think that, to me, people confuse balance with equal. Balance is not equal. It's understanding the ratio.
Yeah. Okay, so what about the overwhelm, right?
Sure.
How do you get through the overwhelm?
So I try not to think too far into the future. How many bad words can I say on this show?
Any you want.
Okay, so my word for this year is unfuckwithable.
Okay.
That's my word.
Did you create that word, or
I found
that
word? I found that word.
Because I've never heard of that word.
Right, and most people haven't. I found it, and I found somebody who had defined it, and I can't remember who it was. It was, you know, like on Instagram somewhere or something, and I was like, ooh, I like that word. And I think back on my entire life. The people I've always respected the most were the people who were unfuckwithable. Like when bad things happened, they didn't really waver, right? They understood it was a big moment and bad things were happening, and they might have a reaction, but they didn't really waver. They didn't freak out. They more responded than reacted. And those were always the people that I've looked at as like, I want to be like that. And so I really went into this word because I was like, that kind of embodies that. And I started breaking it down and thinking about it. And to me, that's how you deal with burnout. That's how you deal with overwhelm. That's how you deal with all of the emotions that want you to focus on the right now, on this moment, how you feel today when you woke up, because it makes this moment so much bigger than all of the others. And if you can put this moment into perspective of it's one of millions of moments that you're going to have, you're like, all right, it's not that big a deal. This is just this tiny little moment. And if I can figure out what to do next, or I can think about how to make, what my next move is from here, then all right, I'm going to be okay. And so there's no overwhelm, because you don't make the moment bigger than it is, which is being unfuckwithable. And so like that to me is really how you deal with that, is not allowing yourself to make this moment bigger than it actually is, because it doesn't matter what happened. It's still only this moment.
I like it. And I like that word.
Yeah.
On that note, I'm going to take a quick pause. When we come back, more with Coach Marc Nudelberg about getting through those ups and downs in fatherhood, coaching through that whole thing, right? A beautiful thing, and how you can connect with him daily. We'll be right back. When it comes to social media and elevating your brand, you want a company that gets you, your business, and your product, like SoCo Social. If you struggle with content creation, consistent posting, keeping up with the latest trends, and staying ahead of your competition, SoCo Social's got your back. With over 15 years of combined experience, SoCo Social knows a thing or two when it comes to creating killer content that converts your followers into customers. No more wasting your time trying to figure out what to post. SoCo Social brings consistency to your brand's online presence. Ready to see your brand grow? Well, you can visit their website. That's www.socosocial.com. SOKOE social.com, the go-to social media agency for fashion, beauty, lifestyle, and wellness brands. Well, welcome back, everybody. We have Marc Nudelberg from On the Ball Consulting with us. Coach, we talked about, sorry, I keep calling you Coach. I know you
it's great respect to me. I appreciate it.
In the corn blue kicking football world. But, former coach, former D1 coach, and now just motivating all of us as individuals, as companies, as teams. When we talk about the team of fatherhood, parenthood, all of us can relate that are parents. It's not easy, right? But I call it wonderful chaos.
Yeah.
Because it really is, and you kind of learn as you go.
Yep.
What are some takeaways for us that you've learned and that you try and hold on to as you're raising your boys?
Oh, it's, presence is everything, and not like the terms of giving presents, but being present. And however I can accomplish that for my boys is the thing that I try to get done. I have 2 boys, one from a previous marriage, one who lives in Tallahassee with his mom, and one who lives here with me and my wife. And so I never pictured myself being a long distance parent. I never thought that would be me as a father. My dad is a great dad, and I'm super thankful that I had a lot of father figures in my life who were great fathers and all came from different backgrounds and walks of life, So I had a lot of male influences on me that created a wide spectrum of what a father could look like. Then defining it for yourself is difficult, because I worked in a profession in football where there's it's family, football, and faith, or family, faith, and football. And I'm like, yeah, it's really none of those things. It's just football all the time. Sure, they say it's family, but that's because they bring the family in on Sunday night to have dinner with you at the office so that you don't have to go home. And, they say that it's faith because we, say the Lord's Prayer before and after games, but they're not giving us Sunday morning off to go to church. So
you're in there watching tape.
Those are words that we talk about, but do we really live them? And so coming from a profession where family was totally secondary and everything was about the profession and the game and what we were doing, it created a significant void for me in my life. And so when I decided that I was going to take responsibility for my future and I was going to bet on myself and become an entrepreneur, I said, nobody is ever going to dictate the time I spend with my family anymore. They truly will be the top priority in my life. And we live in a time now where good decisions are data-driven decisions. right? Like that, we have access to so much information now and so much data that it's hard to be a dad because like some of that tough love that you thought was what you were supposed to get when you were little might not really be the best thing anymore, and just telling your kids, to suck it up and, hey, be a man, and like what that really means today is different than what it was when I was young and growing up and impressionable and what I thought, being a dad or what you do is. So it's, it's convoluted. There's a lot of different perspectives and opinions on it, but I think evolution and continuing to evolve what you think is right is so important, because the more information we get, the better decisions we can make. And the more you can just be present for your kids and allow them to become whoever it is that they're supposed to be, right? And whatever they like to do, whatever they show passion in, teach them consistency. Teach them discipline, not in terms of timeout and sacrifice, but in terms of if there's going to be pain, there's going to be hard, there's going to be failure, there's going to be things that I'm not going to rob those emotions from you, right? I'm not going to protect you from them, and I'm also not going to make it bigger than it is, right? Like if you choose to do something, there's a commitment that comes along with that. There's responsibility that comes along with that. But I'm always here to help you and guide you through it. I'm not going to do it for you, but I'm going to be here to help you through it. I think that's really what it's about, is how can we become stewards for our boys or our girls or whoever they want to be as they're growing up, to help them be the best version of that, which is being a coach. So it's great for me because being a dad is similar to what I do all day, every day as a career and a profession. And, it's you just get to coach all the time.
How did you get through some of your tough moments, whether it was, through your career, through your relationships? What is your message to those who might be going through some of those situations currently?
Find somebody, it's always about my tribe. And if we're connected on LinkedIn, then that I welcome everybody who I connect with on LinkedIn, saying welcome to my tribe, because that's the way that I look at everybody that I bring into my world, because it's really what it is, right? These are the people that you're going to rely on, or you should rely on, as a support system, as people to help you when it's okay to not be able to do it all on your own. It's okay to need the help. You should need the help. And you want to have the right people around you to be able to help you. So the more diverse, the wider, the bigger your tribe is, the more specialists you have in your tribe, the more opportunities you have to seek out people to be a sounding board, help you through, give you perspective, and help keep you, moving forward and doing what you need to do to be successful. So for me, if you think you're going to do it all by yourself, you're sorely mistaken. And if you're surrounding yourself with people that aren't willing to get in the foxhole with you and help you and be supportive of you, then you've got the wrong tribe.
Well, our tribes can start with the Daily Huddle. So tell us a little bit about it, because it's an easy way to start connecting with you, Marc, and your team. Yeah,
Daily Huddle, the Nudelberg Daily Huddle. You can find it on LinkedIn and YouTube. We do it every Monday through Friday, live at 7:58 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we go anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. We like to say that we stop at 8:20, but there's a lot of times where we hit overtime. But yeah, it's a daily. First of all, I believe in owning the morning. Right? I think if you own your morning, you set yourself up for the opportunity to be successful for the rest of the day. And so regardless of when you start your day, we start very early. 7:58 is the time where most people are up, and at some point in the beginning of their day, we want to help you own it. So we want to help you with energy, right? We deliver our energy to you to help you feel ours and get started in the right way. We want some information. We want to be able to share something with you that you can take with you that's going to help you be successful that day, that week, or whatever. And community, people, other people that are doing it with you. So people come in and they say good morning in the comments, and they're commenting on what we're talking about, and we're engaging with them. And so to me, how can you help own your morning and send your day in the right direction? We love doing it every single day for people on the Nudelberg Daily Huddle.
That's a great constant support team.
Yeah,
right?
it's a digital networking event,
That's
right?
great.
Like,
Yes.
just go meet new people and show up
great.
and have a good conversation every day.
I love it. Your book released last year, Family, Football, and Failure, Leadership Principles from My Life as a Coach. Tell us a little bit about it and we'll grab it.
So it was a great opportunity for me as I was building on the ball with my dad, and as I had transitioned out of my coaching career, for me to really pull together all of the transferable skills and all of the parallels that had made me successful in football, were making me successful through the transition and through the start, and a way to create a time capsule of that moment. And that's really what it is it's leadership principles that apply to you as an individual. Leadership starts with yourself. Leadership is not a title. It's not, a team of people underneath you. It is you. It is how you choose to operate every day. And so the book is a roadmap of just how you can develop the right kind of mindset, how you can develop the right kind of habits and processes to help you and your team operate at a higher level.
Okay, great. And you have an event coming up for the females, right?
Yeah, well, it's for everybody. I made
is.
that mistake last year, right? As I call it, it's a women's power summit.
Okay.
But the reason it's a women's power summit is it's a conversation about the empowerment of women that everybody should be hearing. So while it's a focus on women, it is highly encouraged that males attend this, especially those that are in some kind of role of influence, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to continue to create the equality that should exist for women in the workplace. We bring in some influential female leaders, especially from down here in South Florida. So Lisa Lutoff-Perlow, who's the CEO of Celebrity Cruises, Cheryl Woods, who's the CEO of the YMCA in Broward, Robin Raphael, who's the president of RCC Associates, which is a construction company down here in Florida, and Jen Starkey, who's the vice president at TD Bank down here. Like, these are powerful, influential women that have plenty of knowledge and expertise to share. And I get to be the moderator of a conversation of all of them on how do we continue to push equality forward? How do we ensure that we're setting up not only young women, but young men for success, for the right behavior and the right thoughts and everything that we need to be doing to build the right kind of workplace in the future.
Okay, so that's end of October. Right?
October 26th. You can find the event on all of my social channels and also on all of the On the Ball social channels and website.
So share those. What are some of the social channels and handles that we can?
So you can find me, Marc Nudelberg, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. You can also find Coach Noodle on Instagram and Twitter. Both of those places are great places to get me. LinkedIn being the best, and then On the Ball is where you can find, ontheball.co is our website where you can find all of the information for everything we're doing there. That's the best place to go.
And I always like to say, I'll put those links on my website, and I say it's paigekornblue.com, Paige with an I and Kornblue with a K. And Noodle is not like our noodles.
That is
so,
correct. That
right?
is Nudel.
Yeah.
Coach Noodle, Nudel. Which I've gotten all different kinds of pronunciations and spellings and throughout the years of my name.
Well, PK is thrilled to have Noodle here today. I mean, we got our own little coaching session, so thank you for sharing all of those thoughts.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to have Brandon hear the show and hear what he has to say.
Yeah, we'll get him. Sometime we'll all chat. I think that would be a good one.
Would love that.
So, well, we'll find you on the Daily Huddle. Thank you, and until next time, everybody, cheers.
Thank you.